On this channel, I do a lot of pixel art already, but if you also want to do pixel art first, you're going to need a pixel editor application. And that's where I would recommend aseprite because it's literally made for making pixel art, and it only costs $20. However, there are a lot of free alternatives online if you don't want to spend money. Matter of fact, if you want to just use aseprite, but just use a free variant of it, there's literally one out there and you can just use it. I'll link that one in the description. But hey, even if that's not enough, there's one on itch.io called Pixelorama that you can download. There's also Piskel, that's one of the more popular free options. And there's even one called Pixel Studio for pixel art, which you can download on your phone. Honestly, the software doesn't matter too much. As long as you can draw and erase, you can create pixel art on there. The only reason I would say aseprite is better than a lot of the other softwares I mentioned is because it's more convenient when it comes to doing animations, using different palettes and effects, are making sure there's a mode where things are pixel perfect so you don't draw straight pixels when doing curves or circles. So once you've decided on what pixel art software you're going to use, go ahead and make a new file or sprite, and now you need to decide on the size for the canvas of this pixel art you're going to use. Common sizes you can use for your canvas are 8x8, 16x16, 32x32, 64x64, and 128x128. I typically use 128x128 and 64x64. It all depends on how detailed you want your pixel art to be, so the larger the canvas size, the more likely you're going to put more details onto your pixel art. Now, the best way to learn pixel art is just to start drawing. So I honestly recommend that you look at a piece of pixel art and just try your best to replicate it without tracing and just by eyeing it, just by looking at it. However, I know that can be a little daunting, especially if you're first starting out. So I'm going to try to explain my thought process while I draw a piece myself. Let's get started just drawing something. I'm going to be drawing Sonic. It's Tyson Hesse Sonic, but he's doing like the Sonic OVA pose where he's giving Eggman the finger. Was he actually giving Eggman the finger, by the way? Like, that's kind of crazy, but I'm just going to be doing a pixel art version of that and just doing the face and his hand of him flicking you off. So to start, I'm going to be grabbing the colors from my reference and putting them into my program. Check and see if your program allows you to do that. If you have an eyedropper tool and you can directly grab the colors from the image that you're looking at. You can always just use your own colors though and try your best to replicate what you see or just do your own thing. The best way to start though is to work in parts. So imagine you have a piece of clay and you just want to add elements to it until you have a finished piece. So for us, we're going to start drawing Sonic's head. It's just going to be a blue circle and that's going to act as our base piece of clay. And then eventually we're going to get to the muzzle and then the eyes. So let's do the muzzle and imagine it's a new piece of clay that we're adding on to our base. Now this piece is a bit more dynamic than just the circle we had. So what I'm going to be doing is just outlining the silhouette of the muzzle that I see and then coloring it in. Then the same thing with the eyes, just drawing, outlining the silhouette and then coloring it in. I'm not worried about it being perfect. I'm not zooming in to make sure every single curve is correct for me. I'm simply just making sure I can get an idea of every part of the face. And the reason why I'm not zooming in is because if I focus too hard on just like a piece, one piece like the eyes, it might distort the bigger picture that I'm going for. Next, I'm going to do Sonic's hair, and for long pieces that are kind of sharp, I like to use the line tool. It's just a great tool that gives me a good idea of where things should be, especially if they're very long. Pause. But I am gonna go back over it and add little humps on Sonic's hair since they are there. Now when I draw, I pretty much do my strokes in one line. If I feel like I messed up a stroke, I honestly just go up and then back. And then when I'm going back, I'm starting to recorrect that line. I also use this to thicken certain lines as well. And if I really feel like I messed up, I'll either just erase the parts that I don't want, or I'll just do Ctrl-Z to completely undo that line. Now this is looking good, so let's add in some details now. And this is where I'll actually start zooming in. So for Sonic's eyes, I'm going to start adding these light blue dots on the corners of Sonic's eyes. That way his eyes look less flat against everything else. Next, I'm adding a dark tan color to the muzzle to pretend as if there's light hitting the middle of the face above, sort of. I'm going to add this to the ears as well, and something that's good about this is that it makes the muzzle look more round, the way that I'm curving it across the whole muzzle. And we're doing this so things look less flat. Next, I'm going to shade Sonic's hair, and like I said before, we're just pretending that the light source is in the middle of Sonic's face in the upper part. So I'm going to add the shading on the spikes at the sort of bottom. As you can see, things sort of stick out more, and now it's more defined on where the spikes actually are and where you kiss Sonic's face and muzzle, and it's a bit less flat now. And now with pixel art, I like to outline it with black. Now, depending on the program, you may have an option that automatically does this for you. For example, if you go to aseprite and you go to edit, and then effects, then outline, you can actually, it will automatically put a outline over your piece. And you can actually decide what color you want it to be too, and everything. Now, I typically only outline the entire silhouette of the piece. The only time I would outline parts of the character is if it was something that is literally like sticking out. For example, I'm gonna put a little line here to show that Sonic's ear is sticking out from his head. I also want to make sure that when I'm doing the black outline for the piece, that I don't even have any black pixels that are on top of each other. I wanted to just be one single strand that's moving across the whole silhouette of the piece. This is because it'll just look more polished. And even though we zoomed in for the details, make sure you zoom out to gauge if everything looks right to you when it comes to the bigger picture of everything and how all the details work together. Lastly, I'm going to do his hand, and similar to how we started off with a circle for the head, I'm going to do a circle for the hand as well, but it's just going to be a white circle. And just like before, I'm going to try to do my best to shape it to where it looks like the silhouette of his hand. And before I move on to the details, I actually just want to outline this because right now it's just looking like a blob. So I want to outline it in order to get a better idea of what I'm looking at with this hand that's actually shaped right to look like an actual hand giving you the finger, boy. And now I'm going to add details somewhat similar to the way that I was doing the hair and muzzle, but I'm using the same color I used for the detail on the eyes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to finish up by adding a few darker shades on the curves of Sonic's muzzle to more so emphasize the roundness of them. But then after that, I'm pretty much done now. So just to do a basic summary of the game plan that I do whenever I do a piece, I'm pretty much just trying to draw the silhouette best I can of what I'm seeing, coloring it in, and then I'll either shape it by using a black line to perfect it, or I'll even add details to get a better idea of what I'm looking at. I'll eventually add the details and the black line, but both those steps are interchangeable for me. I pretty much do whatever I feel is necessary at the moment. So with that method, now you can choose to do the rest of Sonic's body parts if you want. Here's just a time lapse of me doing the rest of Sonic's body parts, but remember, I am just using everything that I've talked about before with just the head and the hands. Now before I end this, I just want to leave you guys with some helpful tips that I think would be very useful to you when you're doing your pixel art. This is a sheet by @pixelmacarios. Shout out to them because they made a pretty much perfect sheet that gives you all the tips that you really need for when you're making a pixel art piece. I recommend reading through this and just keeping this as a reminder for when you're doing your pixel art. And another thing, I actually have a bunch of pixel art characters that I've done for one of my games on my Patreon that you can download each of those characters for free and make like any edits or try to replicate them in some way if you want to sort of practice your own pixel art yourself. I'll link that in the description. Now, as you make more pixel art and do this more often, you will get better and you'll learn more. So I highly recommend that you just get started. Don't even overthink it. Don't even worry about being an amateur or any of this other stuff. Just go ahead and just start drawing something. And even though I didn't cover animating in this video, I'll try to do that next time. And I also just want to note that this is just my method for doing pixel art. If you find something that works for you, please go ahead and do that. Everything I do, you do not have to be bound by it. You know, that's the best part about art, is that we can express ourselves in our own ways and do our own things. But I do hope this was helpful in some way. If it was, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And please let me know in the comments if there's any other things that you want to know about you have any questions about anything, I'll try my best to answer. So yeah, have a beautiful day. Believe in yourself, please. And be as patient as possible with yourself as well. This thing took me like freaking 3 hours or so. So okay, so take your time. Don't worry about yourself, man.